Okay, so I'm going to show you some images of this artist called Keith Haring. Keith Haring was he was a very popular artist in the 1980s. He died very young, unfortunately, but he made a very simple style of illustration. So he would take, say, a human form and just make it like an outline to a stick figure and still make it look very interesting. So we are going to make some of those pictures, and then I'm going to ask you to imagine a particular pose, drawing a human being in a very simple pose that we can draw, inspired by Keith Haring's paintings. So I'm going to just show you how those images look. Okay, do these images look easy enough to draw? They're not too
Yes, ma'am.
complicated, है ना? So he drew a lot of very simplified images. What do these figures look like they're doing?
They're dancing.
They're dancing, right? Correct. Now look at this one. This again is simple. What does this picture say to you? It's a big heart between two people. What do you think it might say?
It shows the friendship between both of the people.
Yeah, correct. Now here's another one. Even this looks a little bit like friendship, isn't it? Now, what do these look like? Are these also people?
Yes, ma'am.
Do these look like people or something else?
No, sorry. These are wolves.
Wolves, correct. They look like, well, this is his favorite dog. And then he showed dancing dogs. And he also had some baby pictures. I don't know what this is, other than just a very bright baby, I would say. So we are going to make some of these pictures. We can start off with making this. So we will draw pencil lines first, and then we are going to either use color pencils or watercolor, or even if you've got markers, that's fine, or chalk, crayons, to draw the outlines and do the coloring. And after we have drawn and painted this image, then you can imagine, I'll show you how to then imagine something, draw a stick figure out of that, and then convert it into a Keith Haring-like painting. Okay? All right, let's get to it. So, Adya, I'm going to show you how to draw this first in pencil. So first observe and then you can start drawing. I'll give you ample time to draw. So don't rush yourself too much. And as far as possible, try to not use your eraser too much. Okay, so whenever you're drawing, use a very light hand to draw. And if you feel you've drawn something incorrectly and you want to change the line, draw the changed line first and then remove the line that you think is inaccurate. Okay. What happens if you erase first is that you sometimes forget what you erased and what you needed to change of that line, and you'll end up making the same line again. Okay. So try to avoid using the eraser as far as possible. All right. The picture, we are going to make a smallish picture, not too large. So we will just make a picture that's about this big. So it's about the size of my palm, not too large. I will uh, I will draw a rectangle first, but uh, observe this first and then you can draw after me. So whenever you're drawing a rectangle, always, in order to be able to draw straight lines, look for a line close to the line that you want to make. And when you're drawing this line, keep looking at the parallel reference line. We don't want to make a very perfect line in any case. Then, and also another thing is to hold your book straight in front of you, not like this, because when you're drawing a line like this, chances are you might draw it crooked. And draw the lines very light. Now, I've drawn a line from here to here, from here to here, but I'm going to leave some space at the corners because I want to round the edges. And then I'm going to just round the edges off like that. Okay. Do you want to first draw this rectangle? I think you can make it a little wider. So look at how my rectangle is wider and taller. It's a little taller. Otherwise, our figures are not fitting in there. So there's a way in which you can also calculate this. If this is how large or long or tall my box is, how wide is it? So it's maybe the same length as the height. So that'll make it a square plus a little less than half of the distance. That's how I measure it. We don't really need to use a scale. I try to not use a scale as far as possible because very often with a scale, you might get accurate measurements, but if you don't have a scale, you never know how to measure at all. All right, now let's draw the figure in the center. First, I'm going to show you the picture and then I'll show you how I'm drawing it. So the figure in the center, the green figure can be drawn first. Then I will draw the figures on either side. If I start drawing from one side, chances are that I might not get enough of a gap and I might draw either all the figures too close to each other or too far from each other. So I'm going to distribute them equally. So first I'm going to draw a stick figure. So the stick figure looks like this. I have a head, I have shoulders. Can you see this? It's very light, I know. I'm trying to draw it light so that I don't have to erase anything. Then I have the man's body or the woman. And then I have two legs coming like this and like this. And then one hand coming down here and one hand doing this. Now, after I've drawn the stick figure, it becomes easy for me to then make it dark like this, following the lines of the original artwork. So the neck, slightly smaller feet. And this line comes through and makes a leg. Do you want to give it a shot?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So whenever you see a design that is, or a painting or a figure that looks very easy to draw, sometimes you can make easy drawings only after you know how to see the complicated shape. This person must have been really good at drawing human figures, very complicated human figures. And after that, studying that, he's able to draw these simplistic figures pretty well too. All right, now I'm going to give you the opportunity to try drawing the rest, two of the other figures, the blue figure and the pink figure on the right. The blue figure on the left, the pink figure on the right. I'm sure you'll be able to do it. The same process. First, draw a stick figure. And when you're drawing the stick figure, just look at how high the head is compared to the first head that we drew of the first body. And then you have a stick figure body coming down. This fellow's feet are up in the air, so he's probably just jumping up and down. And then his hands go higher than his head as well. And then you can draw the line. Give it a shot. I'm sure you'll be able to do it. It's very simple to me. The red figure, or I don't know what his hand is also doing. Very weird hand movement. Can you see that? It almost looks like it's a foot. Oh, maybe that's the elbow. My goodness. So an image like that is called a graphic because it's a graphic representation of something. Very often, a graphic does not have to look accurate like a real image because it is just meant to communicate um, an idea quickly. Like, for example, emojis. Have you seen emojis? Emojis are not really faces, are they? But when we see an emoji, it's almost as if we are seeing a face, and the face, we can tell what emotion we can see in the face. We can see a smiley emoji or a crying emoji or laughing emoji, but it's not anybody's face. So that is called a graphic. Are you all done? Are you still working on it?
I'm still working. I'm
All
still
right.
working on it.
Okay, okay. Take your time. Are you done or are you making more figures? Or just two? Well, I'm waiting for you guys, but we can complete the whole thing. If you think it's easy enough, we can complete all the figures. And if you feel you can draw this without drawing the stick figure, that's also cool. You don't have to make the stick figure every time. Sometimes it helps to make the stick figure. Sometimes you can make it even without the stick figure because now you understand how the logic works. Now, the one on the right hand, the orange person is cut half. It's almost as if he's telling everybody, okay, bye, I've had enough of the party. I'm going out the door. So I'm going to have to reduce the size of my frame. Otherwise, there'll be too much gap left. That's why it's good to start some artworks from the middle instead of the edge. Now, when we copy an artwork of an artist from a long time ago, this is it's called making a study. So, can you figure out why this might be a good idea, or do you think it's a good idea to make a study like this? Can you think of why it might be a good idea, or do you think it's a bad idea to do a study? What do you think?
It's a good idea
Okay, so why do you think it's a good idea? How would you how do you think it would help?
because we will learn from it.
Yes, we will learn. What exactly do you think you would learn? What are you learning?
Drawings,
Okay. I think everyone learns different things from everything, in fact, not just this, but even when in school, some people learn, like, for example, some people learn numbers in maths, some people learn the logic behind numbers in maths. So, similarly, everyone has something that they take away. What do you think you are learning from this? I'm asking both of you.
draw a human figure.
Yes, drawing a human figure. That's good. Anything else?
Uh, Drawing a different type of stickman.
Okay, yes, that is true too. A different kind of stick person. How about the colors? Normally, we paint with lots of colors and lots of color blending. Isn't it interesting that this painting has been painted with almost flat colors? Do you think the colors are nice?
Yes. Yes.
So, I remember, I mean, as far as I remember, I used to paint with these flat colors only when I was very young. And then I thought if I blend colors and make them very complicated, only then my picture would look good. But when I studied the Keith Haring pictures, I thought you can still make interesting pictures by making flat colors, isn't it? So that's again a different kind of learning that is something I learned. So, when you are making a study of a painting, you should try and pick out little things that you think are interesting, that you would never have thought of, or that you have now been exposed to, and you can apply it and do something with. Um, so, for example, all the figures have got these lines around them. What do those lines look like?
Like they are moving movements.
They do look like they're moving. Somewhere there's like jiggling action happening because of the lines, isn't it? So this can give us an idea that suppose if I want to show something moving, if I make some lines around it, maybe that object will look like it's moving. Correct? So you have to, this is almost called like a call and response. You have to look at one thing, or each little thing that is there in the picture, and you have to learn to ask the question, why did the artist do this? What else could he have done or she have done? If the artist is doing something like that in this case, would they make the same thing in another case? So every picture has got potential of asking a lot of questions. And the questions we ask depend on our curiosity. So the more curious you are, the more questions you will ask, the more answers you will get. And that way you can get more tools. You get more tools to make your own drawings more interesting and more versatile. Do you know what versatile means? Versatile means you have multiple options. Like today, if I come and tell you, I want you to make me a figure. Now, today we both of you have at least two ways in which you can make a human figure. You can make it as a stick figure, or you can make it like a Keith Haring figure, isn't it? Just in this one exercise, you have learned how to make two different types of figures. So if someone says, I want to show a dancing figure, you can tell them, okay, which kind do you like? Do you want me to make like a skeleton stick figure, or do you want me to make it like a Keith Haring figure? And that shows how much you can do for just one topic. Now, if you do more and more of these things, tomorrow you might say, okay, do you want me to make it like a stick figure, or do you want me to make it like a Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci kind of portrait of a person? So you can go from something as basic as a stick figure right up to the most detailed, realistic looking picture that you can make. That is called being versatile. Like, I'll give you an example. How many different things have you eaten, or different forms have you eaten a potato in? Have you ever thought about how versatile a potato is? You can boil it, you can fry it, you can mash it, isn't it? That means it is versatile. You can use it in lots of different ways. All right, now that we've drawn the picture in pencil, what medium do you choose to color this up? I have color pencils, and I also have these brush pens, which I really like because they give a nice flat color. Do you have watercolors? Any of these are fine, or do you have crayons?
Ma'am,
What
is
do you-
alcohol markers okay?
Yeah, markers are good. Avantika, what would you like to use?
Ma'am, I have both. I can use anything.
All right, so let's try using markers today. Start with
Yes,
the lighter colors first. Don't do black till the very end. Okay?
yes, ma'am. But I'm not done with drawing.
You
Really?
still aren't done with drawing? Oh, that's
Me
great.
too.
Okay. Are you erasing too much?
No, ma'am.
All right, take your time. I'm going to shift the camera now back to my drawing so you can take a closer look. But I'm going to start painting. Is that okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Okay, now some colors might be equally light or equally dark. I think the red, um, pink, orange all these colors are equally dark. The yellow is the lightest, and this green are slightly different. I'm going to use the same color. So when you're working with markers or sketch pens, remember to color in just one direction in a line like that. So don't go back and forth too much because that can often damage the page. If you feel more comfortable, make an outline around the shape first. We can make a thick outline around all the shapes and then make the rest of the colors. Now remember that if a little bit of the color goes inside some of the shapes, it won't really make a difference because we have to make a very nice thick outline outside of all shapes. Also, if you're working with brush markers or even with a brush or even with a pen, you should always point the marker in such a way that you can see the line beyond the tip. See how I'm doing this? I'm making all the lines on the right side of the figures first because my pen is over here. If I make the line on this side, I can't see where the line is ending properly. So I might go inside the figure. But here, see, I can work much faster because I can see and I can touch the line exactly where the pen is, the tip of the pen, and I keep rotating my book accordingly. That way I get the best grip, the best angle, and speed. Even if speed is not very important. Then I turn the book around and do the same thing. And in the process of just outlining these figures, I managed to color a large area. So always in one direction like that, and line after line after line. Even this is looking quite nice. This is, now I'll turn the book upside down so that I can cover these areas. Okay, here's how I'm coloring this now. All the small areas first, I'll bring them up to the tallest edge. That's this line after line. How far have you come, Avantika? Have you finished making the figures?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, good. Now all my figures are completely surrounded by yellow. So I can make these nice long lines to cover up the head space above them. Now, if you have some patches like that, some dark patches or light patches, some places, just let that be. Don't try to correct anything. Each medium has got its own specialty. And with markers or with, what are these? brush pens, some places you might get a patchy color, but don't worry about that too much. Maybe that is the characteristic of the color. Now I'm painting the green. I happen to have another green. Maybe I can use that. This is more like a aqua. Sadly, these colors don't seem to have any names. So I have to give them a name myself. This is going to look a little different from the main green, the base green, but that's good enough. The process remains the same. Now, when we are painting smaller figures or smaller areas, remember to go slowly. And as far as possible, don't paint into the light color. Use the tip of your pen to slowly fill in the area. I think now I'll go in sequence. Just remember to always place your pen properly so that you don't go outside the coloring area. This is only in the case of this particular artwork that all the given areas are so specific that you want to stick within that space. That is also a skill that we should develop. It's not always that I use this, simply because sometimes it doesn't really matter if your paint goes outside. A little bit of overlap is cool. But you should be able to paint very accurately. That is definitely a mark of a good artist. The best way that you can become a good artist is to constantly challenge yourself. If you can do one thing well, the next day you should challenge yourself to do another thing. And in the beginning, nobody is good at doing everything the first day, but in time, the more stuff that you teach yourself to do, the better you become. And you become more versatile. So I started out drawing mostly just flowers and birds, and I used to be petrified of drawing people. Then one day I just decided, let me try drawing people in small parts. So first I drew the face. Then I started drawing hands and feet. And then I started drawing the full figure. So even in that first, I started drawing fashion figures, which are really odd looking figures. So even if you make the necks too long or the eyes too big, it doesn't really look bad. And then at one point, I very scaredly, I still decided, okay, now I'm going to paint a real human figure. And it took a long time for me to be able to find the right proportion, the right lines, the right quality to do it. And in the beginning, it was very disheartening because my figures were looking very bad. They were looking like stick figures, stick 3D stick figures. There was something missing. But over time, I was able to change that. But had I not challenged myself and been brave enough to do it, I think I would still be drawing flowers and butterflies and birds. How are we doing, girls? All well?
Ma'am, I'm still doing the yellow.
All right. Now remember to keep your hand very light. Don't press too much. Usually the tips of markers, brush pens, alcohol markers, sketch pens, all these are very gentle. So don't press too hard. Hold the book with the hand that you're not working with. That way, your working hand becomes light. So if you're right-handed, hold your book with your left hand. If you're left-handed, hold your book with your right hand. That way, you get good anchoring and your painting becomes much lighter and your lines also become much softer. If you're holding your chin or your head or your knee or your leg, and then only one hand is working, this hand becomes very heavy. It has to do the job of holding the paper also and sketching also. So invariably, your line becomes very harsh and your pressure is a little more than necessary and your pens will spoil. But the moment you put your non-dominant hand down on paper, this hand can be much lighter. It's like when you're standing on one foot. If one foot is in the air, if you have one foot down, the other foot can do all sorts of things. But suppose you have one foot in the air, and the other foot has to balance also, and it also has to stand straight. Then it becomes a little difficult for that foot. All your weight goes onto that one leg, one foot. Now I'm going to use another marker for the outline. I'm thinking I'd like to use this. But before I use the permanent marker, let me try making a line to see how thick the line is. I think this is a good enough line. So before you use any tool for the first time, always make a test on a rough paper. I love these smooth lines. So nice. This picture is going to look awesome as it finishes. Now, if your sketch pens have round edges like these, you can use this to make your outline. If you have something like I have, this is a brush pen, so it does not have one thickness of line, then you have to be very careful to make the same thickness of line throughout. Okay, I'm just going to wait a bit and let you come catch up. Okay, moving on. Remember that first, when you're making the black outline, first make the circle or half circle of the head. Okay, now I'm going to share the image with you so you can look at the colors yourselves. Because you don't need to see me making the outline. Okay, so the name of this painting also is, well, it's untitled, but it's also called Dance. I'm going to write that at the bottom. And this was painted in 1987. So I've just written it at the bottom because that way we know a little bit about the painting also. And after I'm done with that, I will make these action lines. They're the most fun to make. The hardest thing to make, or actually most tedious, would be these lines, the dots in the grass. I usually like to copy the signature of the artist that I'm drawing. So I'm going to try to write his name the way he signed his paintings. Always put a date on it. So I'm going to put 87. Maybe a C for copyright. Seem to write an 8 like this, 80. And 7 would be then he made the sign of plus in a circle always. How are your paintings looking?
Ma'am, I have not finished.
Okay, can I see how far you've come? You can take your time, you don't need to rush. Oh,
Yes, ma'am.
lovely. How cute. Very nice. Good job.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right, I'm going to keep the camera on top of my painting again so you can observe it. And you can continue coloring. Sorry. Okay, so girls, when you're done, please do a little bit of research on the artist. Okay, his name is Keith Haring, and I'm going to show you a picture of one of his paintings that was sold in 2017, and I want you to guess the amount. So, oh, I just went over the figure. This is called Untitled 1982. But can you guess how much it was sold for? And what do you see in this painting? Do you see something? Though the figures are very simple, it is trying to tell you a story through the figures. Can you figure it out? Whatever you see, what do you see in that?
Two wolves, one tree,
Huh?
a baby, two
Yes.
fairies, clouds.
Correct. Very nice. Avantika, what do you see?
Ma'am, a baby sitting on a tree with
Mm-hmm.
two wolves around it and two angels are above it.
Very interesting. Now, let's see what the artist actually is saying. Look at how much it sold for. $6.5 million. So they'll often give you an explanation of the painting. So over here it says a radiant baby, barking dogs, angels, and red X's, all accompanied by his naive language. So it says that, at least the way I see it, what you look at as a tree, I can see as a bomb exploding. And all the red crosses are like, there's lots of disturbances everywhere. In 1982, there was something happening in the world where there was this fear of the atomic bomb. So maybe he might have made a picture about that. But that's my interpretation. And your interpretation is there's a baby in a tree and there's angels on top, and that's also fine. But he did sell it for or not him, the gallery sold it for a lot of money. Now, wherever you can see a painting that is very famous or has sold for a lot of money, usually there's a story behind it. And it's always good to find out what that story is. Why was the artist famous? Why was his artwork popular? So do a little bit of reading on Wikipedia if you can. Just Google the artist. You know the spelling now, it's Keith Haring. And if you can, in the back of this page, just write a few lines about the artist, where he was born, where did he study, what is his style of art. Just 3, 4 lines is good enough for you to start with. So you can always remember about those artists. As far as possible, whenever you see something new, try to ask questions off of that. Sometimes if you eat new food, ask questions. Why is the food the way it is? Who cooks it? When do they eat it? Which people eat it? All of that. So the more curious you are, remember, the more versatile you become and the more tools you have in your toolbox. All right, so next week we will take up another artist. We are going to do another study. And this week, I want you to try to write that little bit of note on Keith Haring. Adya, I'm going to share a link to a video of last week's class where we made a painting by Vincent van Gogh. You can try and paint that, and then we can try finishing it a little bit in the next class. Just a few details are remaining, and proceed to the next artist. Is that okay?
Okay, ma'am.
All right. Okay, so hopefully you'll complete this artwork. I'm going to share a picture on the group. You can watch it and finish it off. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Bye. See you next week.
Bye.